Every reality that we have that's coming into our mind is because that's where our relevancy is at, right? Where our focus is at, where our beliefs are about. Everything is there inside of our head. And when you understand the power that you really have to shape how you see the world, right? As Covey calls it, having a paradigm shift, right? Your paradigms, your patterns of expectations. When you really, really, truly understand the power that we have, man, you can create a whole new narrative, right? You can create a whole new story. And when they said this a lot in prison, and a lot of the prison, those old cognitive renewal things, but man, it's so rings so true, right? Is when you start to change the way you think, right? You start to change the way you feel. And when you start to change the way you feel, you start to change the things you do.
Yeah.
And when you change the things you do, you start to get different things, right? And I'm proof positive of that concept. Man, I changed the way I thought, which changed the way I felt, which changed what I was doing. And it literally opened up
Changed your
the doors,
life.
changed my
Yeah.
life.
What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? Hi, I'm Brent Cassidy. Welcome to the Nightmare Success In and Out podcast, where we explore how to overcome your fears and nightmares that set yourself free. We're going to be exploring this topic with guys I was in Leavenworth with and others who survived their own nightmare. These stories can be inspiring, sometimes sad. There's some humor, but hopefully you can come away with a nugget of something that'll help you knock down some of the prisons you built up in your own mind. Welcome back, Nightmare Success In and Out. Listeners, this is where you come for. What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? How do you adapt, survive, overcome, set yourself free? Folks, don't forget to follow, subscribe, share this thing out, like it up. It really helps the show, and I really appreciate it. So, who's our guest today? Who are we talking to today? I just told it's David Carrillo, and I just read his book. And for anybody who's looking for a book where it'll just take you in and you don't put it down, it was 1:30 last night. I don't stay up that late. my wife, my wife rolled over. She says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I have no idea, but I've gotten into this book and I can't put it down." Um, the book is called Kiko: Life Without Parole to Life with Purpose, and it takes you. I mean, well, we're going to get into all this, but it takes you on a ride, on a journey, and it's authentic and it's raw and it's real, and you can't put it down. But a little bit about David. David, as a young man, David entered the prison system and was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. And it's an interesting case because it was a gang-related thing. He was not the trigger man. He was one of the several people that was around, and so it was complicity of first-degree murder. So and the person who was the trigger person got 35 years, and he got life without parole. So there was some disparity there, obviously. David spent years inside maximum security prisons, surrounded by violence, loss, and the daily reality that his life would likely end behind bars. But instead of surrendering to despair, David made a defining decision to take full responsibility for his past and commit to himself to transformation. This did not happen by the snap of his fingers, which he describes in his book. It took years to make this change happen, but it happened. While serving a life sentence, David pursued education with relentless discipline, earning both his bachelor's degree and an MBA while incarcerated. He became a mentor to others inside, choosing growth, accountability, and purpose in an environment designed to strip away all three. This is really interesting. David became the first of his kind, an adjunct professor who was teaching as an inmate, teaching other inmates college courses and being paid as a professor. Unbelievable. And we're going to talk about that because it's quite amazing. And he's out now. He served 31 years, and he's doing incredible things while he's been out. Uh, David's story challenges how we think about punishment, redemption, and who society allows to change. This isn't a story about excuses. It's about ownership, education, and what's possible when someone refuses to let their sentence define their destiny. I can't wait to jump into all this. This is a story that has so many chapters of stuff that we can learn from. Before we jump into that, I want to recognize our show sponsor, Autoplaza Direct. You like spending a couple of weekends walking car lots looking for a car? Then you spend 4 or 5 hours in the dealership to buy a car. It's kind of like a root canal appointment. Well, there's a better way to take away all that pain and hassle getting a car. It's called Autoplaza Direct. They're your personal car concierge. Just tell them the car you want, what you can pay, and they'll go find that car for you, negotiate your best price. They also offer you warranties and financing. It's all full service. Go to autoplazadirect.com. Tell them Brent from Nightmare Success sent you. Folks, I want to share with you a powerful and moving new book you won't want to miss. My Name is Saffron. Voices, silenced, stifled, and taken away by author Saffron Gustafson. This isn't just a story, it's a journey through resilience, survival, and reclaiming your voice after being silenced for far too long. Saffron's story takes you inside the hidden struggles, the pain, and ultimately the triumph of refusing to be defined by circumstances. As Saffron was putting the finishing touches on her book, the prison she had just been released from, Federal Dublin FCI, was permanently closed because of sexual abuse of the women prisoners. If you've ever wondered what it takes to rise from the darkness of places, to find your truth, and to speak it boldly, this book will inspire you. Pick up your copy of My Name is Saffron today, available now on Amazon or wherever books are sold. Trust me, you'll be moved, challenged, and changed by her story. David Carrillo, welcome in. How are you, my man?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. I mean, relatively speaking, I think I'm doing fantastic.
You are doing fantastic. Yeah. Um, like I said in the opening, I read your book and I read a lot of books. Us guys that go to prison, we get into reading
Yeah,
stuff. Um, your book in particular, you didn't pull any punch. You just we walk with you on this journey in your book. And I got to tell you, David, when I was reading about your childhood, it almost brings tears to your eyes because you see this kid that's trying to kind of do the right thing, do snow shoveling, clean yards, do a paper route, but you're every single turn with every single family member around you, cousins, it's all, and then they warehouse you as children. That it's just all pushing you into the wrong direction. Can you open up about what that was like being a kid in that environment and how what you were thinking growing up?
yeah. I mean, the interesting thing when I reflect on it, I realize the dysfunction and the trauma that I was being exposed to. But at the time, I mean, honestly, it seemed like normal, right? This was life. This is how things were. Um, and I opened up about that because sadly, too many kids are going through that, right? Too many kids are being exposed to um, a dysfunctional and not really a normal life, but living it as if this is
As if it's
normal,
normal.
right? And we're being molded and shaped into values and belief systems
Yeah.
that aren't very valuable at all, if you will, right? Like,
Yeah, because your
um,
dad was teaching you the ways of life, but he was teaching the ways of the streets and how to be, more or less in a gang. Um,
yeah,
and you have your brother and your sister, and you had such a complicated relationship with your dad. I could all the way through until the end.
yeah.
Um, but when you had these situations when your dad would go to prison and your mom was in this situation and you guys became wards of the state and then you go to foster care, the part where you're in California and your grandparents didn't want you and you end up basically in this warehouse. What was that like as a kid?
Oh yeah, it was rough, right? I mean, growing up, watching my dad in and out of the penitentiary. I mean, I remember him telling stories to us when he would come home about his experiences in prisons. Like so I had heard war stories about prison long before I had even any idea of what a prison was,
Mhm.
right? I mean, I visited my dad in prison, but I mean, I'm a young boy, right? I don't really have any real concept or idea of what is going on with this, and um, dealing with that experience of him in and out and already preparing us for this world, and my mom's struggling trying to keep things together while he's away, and then when he's coming home having to deal with the violence in the house, um, until it finally broke between the two of them, right? And they finally got divorced, and as they were going through the divorce, it was an ugly divorce, custody battles. They threw us in foster homes, me and my brother and my sister. We stood in foster homes for a while as they battled out
And
custody.
you really
And
weren't that
interestingly,
old, David, when you were going
no,
through.
no, I wasn't. I was roughly around 11 years
Yeah,
old at this time, and my younger brother and sister, even younger. Um, and the interesting thing was my dad was in jail in California at the time when they were going through this custody battle. So my mom was on the streets. My dad was in jail. None of the family wanted us, so we ended up in foster care. There was a huge battle with all of this, and then my dad ultimately wone custody of all three of us while sitting in jail.
which is
And
amazing. When you
so,
had that in the
yeah, it
book, I was
was
like, "How in the world did that happen?"
yeah, it was kind of wild. I said, I really don't know how he won. I mean, we never sat down and talked about strategy. I never was giving any explanation. I just
Right.
know the end result through all of these court hearings and these battles was my dad, was victorious. And um, so what ended up happening is while my dad was still in jail, they had sent us out to Colorado, where my grandparents lived, my dad's parents. Um, for us to stay there and wait for our dad, and when he did finally get out of jail and show back up to Colorado, he didn't take us right away. We still remained with our grandparents. And my brother started getting in trouble at first. I was like I mentioned in the book
Mhm.
about paper routes and stuff. I was trying to kind of build my own life, if you will.
Yeah,
Right? I wanted things. You didn't have money. It came from nothing, so I wanted money, and
right.
so I would go out there and I would hustle for
You
that.
even do a lemonade
Uh,
stand with cookies.
Oh yeah, my mom would help me bake up cookies so I could do all that because I wanted to make my own
Yeah.
money, right?
This isn't a hardcore
Wanted to be able
kid.
to have things. Yeah, yeah, not really. I wasn't a hardcore kid by any stretch, but but that's the thing, right? Most young kids they're good
Yeah,
kids at heart, and they're just trying to figure this stuff out.
yeah.
And so now here we are, flash forward, we're in junior high school now. Things are not great at my grandparents' house. We really weren't wanted there. And this was shown through a lot of the emotional abuse we experienced, not just
Mhm.
the physical, but the psychological and emotional abuse that we had experienced. And so my brother started to run away after numerous attempts to try to get things right with my little brother. He was sent back to California because even though my dad had won custody of us, we were still considered wards of the state of California. And so after my brother gets sent off, I start acting up. I couldn't deal with the abuses anymore. So I started to run away. And, I'm living on the streets in Pueblo, trying to find a way. And um, they didn't play around with me as long as they did with my brother. They immediately were like, "We're not putting up with this one. Send him back." So they send me back to California, and I remember going to McLaren Hall
Yeah.
in Almonte, California, and this place was supposed to be like a social services place, right, where kids who are dealing with custody issues and abandonment,
It's supposed to
parents,
be a safe
they hadn't
shelter.
really yeah, it's supposed to be like that, but man, this place was wild, and I remember walking into this place and well, not walking in, when, the social worker picked me up from the airport and drives me to the facility. I remember the gate opening, right? Just like if you're
Yeah,
driving
like a
into a
Sally
prison, the
port.
Sally port,
Yeah.
right? And so that gate opens up, we drive in, the gate closes, we get out of the car, and they buzz us into the facility. I remember the sound of the buzz and, the door popping open, and there I go in for a medical examination. And like when you go into a prison for the first time and you go through the diagnostic center, right? And they do your psych eval and all that type of stuff, your risk assessment. I mean, I went through this kind of process in this place that was supposed to be
Safe
for
house.
social services
Right.
kids, right? And it was wild. And then after I was done with all of that, they take me out to the cottage that they had assigned me to.
What were you
And I remember,
thinking, David? Because this felt like prison, I'm sure. I mean
oh
I
yeah,
mean,
well,
what
I
was
didn't
going through
know.
your mind? Like, you don't know what's coming at you.
I didn't know what was going on. I mean, I was scared. I was anxious. I was curious. I mean, there was just so many
Yeah,
emotions going on, and and I don't know what to expect, right? I mean, my dad had told me a whole lot of stories, but like this was my first time really being
yeah.
uh, put into a place like this. I mean, I did the foster care, and then I was in this facility called Yahtzee, the Youth Adolescent Treatment Center in Pueblo. That's where I was at before they sent me to McLaren Hall. And this place, this wasn't nothing. It was
Mhm.
actually in a hospital, so it was a little ward with a handful of kids in this hospital. And so I get to McLaren Hall, and now I'm entering into my cottage, and here's all these kids, right? And I mean, just a bunch of them in there. There's some in rooms, like dorm style rooms, and in the area where like the kind of like the living room area, day hall, like day halls in prison.
Mhm.
You had the TV, but you had guys that were on cots,
Mm.
right? Because
Not
not
enough
as
room.
many,
Yeah.
not enough room for all the kids that they had in this place.
Mhm.
So kids were sleeping out on cots in the middle of the floor. And so that night I'm on a cot, right? I hadn't been there long, so obviously I'm thrown on a cot. But the kids are all moving around and talking and everything, and I get lured into this room, and the door gets slammed shut, and here's this giant white kid just waiting for me, and I'm sitting there, and I'm this little young, but I'm not even thinking about this stuff, right? Like even the politics of the
Yeah.
racial divides isn't even in my
Right.
mind. And here I am now, and I'm locked in this room, and here's this big old white kid, and I'm forced to fight this kid, and I don't know why. I didn't know
Yeah.
what the deal was, but this was, as I come to learn later, this was the typical heart check that you get when you walk into some
That
of
you
these
will
facilities, right?
get for the rest of your life while you're in the prison system.
Right.
Yeah.
And so next thing you know, here I am. I'm fighting this monster of a kid, and with all my might and all my heart, and I somehow got over. I got
Well,
him on
this
top of the
wasn't,
bunk.
like, uncommon for you, though, David. I mean, one of the things that kinda took my breath away is at a family gathering, it was you and your brother, and this happened,
Yeah,
this wasn't, just one time that it happened.
no,
They'd push you out into this basically, arena to fight
hmm
in the backyard, and,
yeah,
it was one if you win, you don't get, in trouble. If you
you don't get
lose,
beat.
yeah,
Yeah,
then you're all kinds of trouble and get you another beating.
yeah, So even though I didn't wanna fight that kid, I was actually already battle tested,
Yeah,
right? I had the ability to fight. I didn't wanna fight. I wasn't that kind of kid, but I was already battle tested because, yeah, I mean, since I was a little boy, they would pit me and my brother against each other, and we would be entertainment for the family as me and my little brother would kick the crap out of each other. And those were the kind of awards, like, when we got in trouble because we were fighting with each other,
right,
so, natural sibling rivalry. So the consequence, if you will, is, well, go and fight.
right.
So we're going to actually make this a sport and an entertainment, and the winner becomes victorious. He gets the praise, the showering of affection,
Yeah,
and the loser is going to get beat
more.
and put in the room and
Yeah.
grounded. And yeah, it was just, it wasn't the
And
greatest of
David, I
upbringing.
gotta ask you because there was a time where I mean, it sounds like a lot of family was around. There was a lot of drinking. There was a lot of drugs. There was cousins. There was all this stuff. And
Yeah.
I mean, you even talk about, having the thing with your cousin and, him being like a sophomore and you being like an eighth grader and you just wanted to get at him.
Mhm.
And so, he's a germaphobe and you spray this stuff on him and you still get, the back end of this thing from your
Yeah.
grandmother. But was there a time in whether it be school or anything else where you were got outside of that bubble and saw that there were different lives going on, that what was going on in the backyard here or all this craziness that was happening? Or was it you just stayed in this bubble of this environment and that's all you knew and that was the normalized weirdness of your world?
Yeah. Yeah, all the way up until, yeah, no, that was the normalized bubble of my world
Yeah.
all the way until I would say I was about 18. I had gotten out of Lookout Mountain School for Boys, which was this juvenile prison, if you will, here in Colorado. And I had gotten out, and I had met this individual by the name of John Solis. I went and did some sort of event where I spoke to these people, and he took a real liking to me and wanted to try to mentor me. And
Mhm.
so he opens up his office to me. I started going to PCC, Pueblo Community College. And so he opens up his office to me to be able to utilize the space to get away from the house, right? To utilize the space to do my homework and study and everything like that. And one day he wanted to try to show me, because by the time I'm 18 now, I'm entrenched in the gangs.
Yeah.
I got my neighborhood started up in Pueblo where we're making big waves. I
And
mean,
I
big,
gotta
big
tell you,
waves.
David, when I'm reading about these stories where you're just kinda growing as into this person with this gang, I don't know how in the world you guys survived just those things because at one time your dad, and you and your brother, I think there's only like 3 or 4 of you, you've got some bats, and there's 20 some odd people, and they take off running, thank God, but I
Yeah.
mean in another situation, it wasn't like that. I mean, you had so many different things that happened to you violently before you ever went into prison, and
Yeah.
and your dad was right there with you.
Yeah, Pops was right there with us. I mean, he did a drive-by with us. One of the first drive-bys I was involved in was with my father, so,
Exactly.
yeah, it
You
was
had no
it then
idea. You had your head
yeah,
sticking out the
the story
window.
yeah, I didn't expect him to shoot, I didn't expect that, right? I mean, I knew my dad was a gangster, I knew he'd like to fight, but, yeah, the drive-by, I didn't expect him to pull the trigger like he did, and that shocked the heck out of me, but, yeah, so, no, that's why I said, like, this was the world I had known, right? And, this wonderful individual named John Solis, he tried to show me a different way, he wanted to show me what real power was,
Yeah.
and I wasn't ready for the lesson, but when he took me on this trip one day, that we start off, we go to Parkview Hospital, and he introduces me to the head doctor and the head nurse. They offer me an internship right there on the spot.
Mhm.
Right. I mean, once I got to the area in school where I was going to need to do an internship, I had that locked in with Parkview Hospital.
Right.
Then he takes me to this bank, Minnequa Bank, and we sit down and have lunch with the president of the bank, and the president's sitting there chopping it up with me about finances and all this type of stuff. And then after we have lunch with this individual, we head off
What
to
was going through your
uh,
mind sitting there at that table, being an 18-year-old kid, knowing on the other side of the world, you're living 2 different lives. You're talking to the
yeah.
banker here, and you're also a gang leader. Uh,
Well, I'm thinking the trip's cool. I mean,
yeah.
it was nice. It was cool. It was really enlightening. But at the time, my brain wasn't ready to
You weren't
receive
thinking,
the
"Hey,
lesson.
wait a minute, I could maybe jump
Yeah.
into this world. This guy's a mentor to
Right.
me. This could be my path."
Yeah, right, yeah, what I mean? Because then he takes me to the chieftain and gets me a job on the spot, introduces me to all these people, and I got a job.
Yeah.
And so, but still, then I go home and what's at the house, right? And everything around me, and I got all the homies and everything I'm responsible for. At least I'm feeling like I'm responsible
Well,
for. So
I
like,
wanna dive into that a little bit because for some people, for a lot of people, they don't even understand how this gang thing, this gang culture works. But by simply reading your book, David, what I start to understand is there is no real family feel that like people are taking care of each other, people are looking out for each other. There's a code. When you're not getting that in your own family, these gangs serve as a way for that feeling to be, even though it's violent, it's a family. You're looking out for
yeah, it
each
becomes
other.
your
You have a code of respect and there's love and there's all loyalty and all these things. And you can feel that when you're talking about it in the book that this became and then you become a leader of that. You're kind of the main guy that everybody's looking out for to protect them and the loyalty and teach the rules of the street and all that.
right.
And you're not that old.
No, most of them are my age. Actually, I had a few members in my neighborhood who were older than me. They should have been my parents,
Yeah.
and they're following and listening to what I have to say. I'm protecting these people and being involved in that. Yeah, yeah, it became my surrogate family, right? I mean, except out in this this pseudo family, I'm the big brother, I'm the father, I'm the one that's responsible for everybody and taking care of everything. And so whenever anything would happen, I was the front liner. I was the first one right there to go and take care of things, and so I built up a reputation within this community that's who I was. And if you messed with any of mine, I was most likely coming for you because I didn't with the abuse that I experienced as a kid, being picked on because I was a small kid, right? I was real skinny as a kid,
Mhm.
and I got bullied. I got picked on. My cousin, my own family members, they would do these things to me, and so I started to have this real hate for bullies.
Mhm.
And so I ended up becoming kind of a bully myself, if you will, right?
Mhm.
Because if anybody tried to bully, in my view, in my perception, anybody who was with me, I'm coming after you tenfold,
Yeah,
right?
and
And
that
that
and I'm glad you brought up the thing about you being, somebody that's just a skinny kid and because, it was your attitude that got these guys into saying, "Hey, David's got." I mean, it was your attitude, "I'm leading first. If there's gonna be a
Mhm.
first draw of a fist, it's gonna be me out front." These things happen to create this legend of David
Yeah.
Carrillo in this area. So when when the nightmare of this night landed on you of of when someone dies,
Yeah. Yeah.
was it a moment where this was a that you guys were going to and a thing that you thought something was going to happen, or was it a spontaneous thing that just happened?
So it was portrayed in our trial as this plot, right? Like that we had started planning it from the very beginning, but it was never a plot. It actually was a spur of the moment thing. We were walking a couple of our homies halfway home after a wild night because we had got into it with these other guys just a little bit earlier. And as we were walking our boys home, we realized that we were coming up on another boy's house that he actually used to be a member of ours and then joined up with another crew and had started doing things that against us. And so when we came across this guy's house, now the idea was maybe we're gonna go bust his windows out and shoot his windows out. And then one thing led to another, and the trigger man in my case and another individual went to the guy's house. They went to his bedroom window, knocked on his window to see if he was there, woke him up. And as soon as they woke him up and saw that he was indeed in the room, the trigger man shot him. And the bullet tore through. He shot him one time, and they took off running. But the way that the guy was twisted as he, was getting up, started because it was happening at like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm,
And so he startled out of his sleep, and the way he was contorted, the bullet ripped through his aorta.
mm,
And at the time, the technology and everything, there was no repairing that.
mhm.
So the kid ended up bleeding out several hours later and passed away. So the way that it happened, it helped to again, talk about legends and stuff, right?
Right, right.
There's a kernel of truth in legends, but most of it's been
Sure.
overblown through storytelling and retelling the stories. And so the way that it happened, because we did, he was shot and killed in his own house, is it was like an assassination
Mhm.
attempt, right? Or not even an attempt, an actual assassination. And so it was blown up that way. And so it made big news in the town. Um, 8 of us were ultimately indicted in this case, 5 of us for murder, and, yeah, so, yeah, it was just one of those, spur of the moment
How
things.
did
It
they
was,
how did it all come around to when this happened that night, you guys leave, how did they round you up? How in this moment of whenever that happened, you have moments after that, what happened?
So yeah, I mean the kid heard the trigger man and named him to the police.
Mhm.
So we were already on the police's radar, and then the very next day, one of the boys that was with us that night turned states.
Okay.
He turned himself in the very next morning, and told all, right. Said who all was there, who was all involved, and yeah, so we were immediately being sought after and looked for. The trigger man, especially, right? And they were trying to find the trigger man, but they didn't arrest everybody right away. But they eventually arrested all of us within a matter of I think a week or two. And yeah, then the indictments came down, yeah, and yeah, all of us were ultimately charged and then indicted, except then, the trigger man, he copped out to it. He said he did it, right?
Yeah.
He said he did it, and they gave him a deal for admitting it, and they gave him 35 years for second degree murder. But me and one of the other boys that was with us that night, we didn't cop out to anything, and so they ended up taking us to trial and convicting us both of the first degree murder and giving us both life without. But he was under 18 at the time, and I was 19 at the time. And so when Miller v. Alabama came out,
Yeah.
my co
2012?
partner, yeah, he was able to benefit that from that because Colorado had rewrote the
Mhm.
sentencing guidelines and brought all of the juvenile
Mhm.
lifers back for resentencing, and they took the natural life off of his head.
Wow. And when you went to trial, David, and that verdict came down, the life without parole, what goes through one's mind when you hear that? Is it a blur? Are you numb? Are you what happens?
Kind of, but I mean, I already. I was already prepared for it,
Okay.
right? I mean, we were convicted, and then we came back for sentencing about a month later.
Mhm.
So over that time, after that gavel dropped of guilty of life, of murder in the first degree, I already knew what the sentence was going to be because in Colorado there was only two options, right? At the time in Colorado, if you were an adult, you were convicted of first degree murder. You were either given the death penalty or life without the possibility of parole. There was no gradation there. There was no 40 to life, no 20 to life,
Yeah.
no. There were no other options other than natural life or death. And so, since they weren't pursuing the death penalty against us, the only sentence I was going to receive a month later was going to be life without the possibility of parole.
So,
And we knew this. We were able to prepare, and I try to put my family, on notice that hey, this is what we're going to get, and it's still when we go in there and the judge reads off the sentences and the families start to cry, and
yeah,
it's just like, man, we're not trying to hear you cry. We're already dealing with this, and
yeah.
so that was rough. It wasn't the reading of the sentence that
It's the
that got me. It
reaction
was the
in the
reaction of the
courtroom.
family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess let's take a break there because there's this whole world that happens for you from this day forward, and it's quite amazing of all the different things that happen. And I want to touch on a lot of it, David, because how you survived in all these different levels. You went from one level three to a four to a five, and then back to a four, and then back to five. That's
Mhm.
unbelievable
Yeah.
how you did this. So let's take a break. A lot of people don't like how they show up online. Many individuals think there's no hope when it comes to managing your reputation on Google. There is hope. It's called the Discoverability Company that can help you. Whether you're building a reputation from scratch or you're repairing search results after a negative news story, Discoverability can also help you how you're portrayed on popular AI services called ChatGPT. To learn more, visit discoverability.co. It's not .com, it's .co. Listeners of Nightmare Success can take $100 off with coupon code Nightmare Success. And the Nightmare Success podcast is sponsored by the White Collar Support Group, the world's first support group devoted to people navigating the white collar criminal justice system. I'm a member of the White Collar Support Group, and I can tell you this is a bunch of people who help each other through the criminal justice journey for free. Whether you're just starting your journey or you've made it through to the other side, this is great space for you. You can join us on Zoom Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. For more information, go to prisonist.org. That's prisonist.org. Okay, David. Now a whole nother life starts for you. You've made
Yeah.
it to this point, which when you're reading the book, you're like, I can't believe he made it here. And now you're sentenced to life to go to prison. Walk us through what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I have a life sentence. I know I'm coming in. I'm still a young, skinny kid. Of course, at this time, I kind of in my mind's eye, I'm 7 foot tall, 500 pounds, right? And so I'm coming into this system ready to make a name for myself. Uh, and I already had an idea of what I was supposed to do, right?
Mhm.
From McLaren Hall all the way on up, I've already been conditioned,
Yeah, you've
right?
been
All
groomed
the different
from like 11
yeah, been
years
groomed.
old.
Been groomed since
Yeah,
I was a little kid.
yeah,
All the war stories pops used to tell
yeah.
me, and then now here I am making my own journey through, just in and out of juvenile detention centers and stuff all around the place. And so I walk in, and I remember I touched my first yard I touched down on is Buena Vista Correctional Facility, which at the time was referred to as Gladiator School.
Mhm,
That was our version of Gladiator School here in Colorado. And it had that reputation because once upon a time it used to be a reformatory. It was actually a juvenile facility, and then they converted it into a prison system in the 70s. But after they converted it to a prison, they still kept the younger offenders there, right? The younger inmates.
mhm,
And so, the young kids coming in with that attitude and all that testosterone and just, looking to make a name for themselves and not be victimized, that helps to fuel that violence.
mhm.
And so I'm hearing all these stories about Muni, and they tell me I'm going to Muni, and I'm like, oh, that's great. So I get
Which
there,
is
and I
what they call
remember,
Buena Vista, by the way, Buny.
yeah,
Yeah.
Muni, yeah. And so I get to Muni, and they send me to my cell, and I remember going in there, and the top bunks, my Sally, he's at work, so he's not even there yet, and his stuff's all laid out, and so I'm like, all right, I got to show respect. I understand the idea of respect. So I put all my stuff up. I don't make anything. I don't touch anything. Plus, I put my stuff up on my bunk because I'm waiting for the heart check,
Mhm.
right? And why unpack if I'm just going to be taken to seg right away for a fight as soon as I touch down? So I put my stuff on the bunk, wait for my cellie to come, and I step on the tier, and I'm waiting. I'm ready. I'm ready for the heart check. But by this time, I'm kind of actually already known. Most of the dudes that were there in Buny at the time, again, like I said, these were all the youngsters. So these were all, actually a lot of the guys were in lookout with me.
Mhm.
So we already knew each other and what we were about. There was no need for a heart
Right.
check
You've
when
aged you
you've
now you've
already,
aged into a real prison
yeah,
man.
I've kind of aged into this. So it wasn't, I didn't have to worry about that. But there were a lot of those old, and I don't know other systems, but we referred to them as either canines or sharks,
Mhm.
right? The canines are the sharks, those predators that like to try to take advantage of them young boys.
Mhm.
So now I got to be mindful of these dudes, right? And so I start to prep myself for what's to come. I get a bunch of the youngsters together that I knew from Lookout. We kind of start to band together because Colorado at the time wasn't really. There were some gangs, but it wasn't as um, um,
Wasn't like California.
no,
Right.
it definitely wasn't like it still isn't, but it's evolved, right? It's way more political than it was when I first went in,
Right.
as far as the gangs are
Right.
concerned. Like the politics, racial politics, racial lines, respect, stuff like that.
Mhm.
That's a given no matter where you go.
Mhm.
But the structure, right? The structure of the gangs and how they kind of control certain elements within the prisons, that hadn't really evolved yet, and so I kind of had a fresh. Uh, uh, Yard. I had this brand new area that hadn't been dominated, and so I began to organize these guys and put us together so we can stand up against these older potential canines.
Mhm.
Right? I hadn't really had any issues with them, but
You didn't want
I'm,
any. Right.
I didn't want any, so I'm strategizing. I'm already thinking what I'm going to do. And I remember one of my homeboys from the streets was there. He was in a different unit, and I had sent word out to him to hook me up with the blade, right? And I write about the story in the book, and so I go to the yard, and where it was weird in Buny when I first pulled up. And Buny doesn't look like this anymore, but when I pulled up in Buny in the early '90s, it was like walking out onto a city park. It was weird,
Mhm.
and I had never been to a prison before, but I knew this wasn't right.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. There
This
are
wasn't
trees out
this wasn't
there.
normal. Yeah, there's trees out there. It looked like I was walking into a city park,
Yeah.
and but it was a dangerous yard at the time, nonetheless. Even though it looked like it was this nice, soft little camp,
It
it
wasn't.
wasn't at all.
Right.
And so we had this little tree by the handball courts where we would hang out at, and I'm playing handball. And my homeboy comes and he puts the blade up there on this tree branch for me, and they call the yard in. And as they call the yard in, my homeboy lets me know, hey, that blade's right there. So I reach up and I pull down this blade, and it's a freaking
A
almost like a
sword.
3 foot fiberglass sword. I kid you not. It was this frick. So I had my jacket with me, and I'm like, man, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? But what am I going to do? Leave it there? So I stick it in my sleeve, and I'm walking into the yard, back into to the facility, and my arms locked in, right? Because I
Yeah.
can't bend my outfit because I got this sword jammed out in my sleeve, and I'm taking it back into the facility. I had this the one of the bricks in my cell was loose, and I was able to hide the blade in the hollow of those little center blocks, right? And yeah, so I get that stashed in, and I end up finding I'm working in the laundry, and I find this nice little piece of steel rod, and I give me an ice pick. So now I got me a more manageable blade, right?
Mhm.
This nice little ice pick, nice steel rod, and I'm just prepping myself. I'm preparing myself for the war. But as I'm organizing, as I'm prepping, they're watching, right? They're always watching. So the staff are taking notice of me.
Mhm.
And when the life sentence was handed down, because actually I went in with a 10-year sentence for another attempted murder
Right.
case, and so I'm still fighting the murder case. I go back, I get convicted, they give me life. I come back, and they're not wanting me on this yard. So they hit me with this little bogus write up, use this as a catalyst to give me a reclassification. And so when they reclass me, they get my points,
When they
and
did the
I don't know.
write-up, I thought that the write-up was that you were leaning on somebody's cell.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was leaning on somebody's cell door. They try to say that I was, because you weren't supposed to what they called
Yeah.
sal visit, right?
But this is
And I wasn't
something
in.
just I mean, for this is inside prison talk here, just 2 ex-convicts, but that's not a big deal. almost 99% of the time, somebody wanted you to write you up about something.
Somebody wanted, yeah, and that's exactly what it is, right? You know, and when I talk to the guys that are on the other side, they laugh at that write up because it was so stupid. But you know how CEOs are; when they want to
They
write
can
you up,
write
they
you
can
up for
find any
anything, right?
excuse to get you. So here I am leaning on my partner's door, watching his TV from outside of his cell, and the cop writes me up. Right, the CEO writes me up. They send me to SEG and have a reclassification hearing on me, and what they call it in Colorado is a hold close. Right,
Mhm.
they're sending me up to
And
a level
seg for
four
you
back.
is the hole.
Yeah,
For
SEG
those
is the
listening down in the
whole.
Cayman Islands, this seg, hole, shoe, it's not good.
Yeah, 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 and then ad seg, that's shoe, right? Special, yeah. So yeah, so I'm there. They reclassify me, and at the time, if you had a life sentence, you got an automatic 50 points, which puts you to closed custody level, right?
Mhm,
It was just they just capped it at that. That's what, because they didn't need to go any higher.
mhm,
It would automatically close you out, and you're stuck on a level 4 yard. Well, they wanted to ensure because they do have overrides,
mhm,
right? Like you could still stay on a level 3 yard as a level 4 individual with an override.
mhm,
They wanted to ensure that they weren't keeping me there, so they set me a fake PED date and give me a point for every year to my PED, which gave me 1,024 points because they set my PED date at January 15th, 2004. I'll never forget that date, right? Because I thought that was so comical.
mm.
And yeah, it gave me 1,024 points. And in their little comment section talked about how I was my violent history and my violent potential. I was inappropriate for
For
the
their
Buena Vista Correctional Facility. In other words, I was too violent for gladiator
Mhm.
school. I thought that was
Well, that kinda made your
comical.
head grow a little bit. You're like
Oh yeah, no, and that's what it did. And
yeah,
I talked to people about that. You know, for all the times that they were trying to scare me straight,
mhm,
maybe if you will, all they were really doing was pumping my head up,
exactly.
right, and making me feel more. And now I got
Important.
to fit into this
Yeah.
mold, you know. And so they send me off to Centennial Correctional Facility in Colorado, which was our level 4 yard. And here's where all the old timers and certifieds were, right. Everybody was about it on this yard. And so here I am. I'm coming in 20 years old, just this young kid, still skinny, still I don't even have my man weight yet.
Which I wanna
And
point
I'm
out
on.
that you were only at that other prison for, like, 6 months to a little under a year, so this you now
Yeah, yeah. I was only
you're
in.
already on a new yard.
Yeah, I was actually only in Buena Vista, I think maybe 4 months, so for
Yeah,
it's like September to
yeah.
January, and I'm on my way to Centennial, and then I get to Centennial, and I start bringing in drugs. I'm getting involved with a little bit more, clout. My name's starting to spread through the prison
Mhm,
system even further now, and, it's not long, like maybe 6 months at Centennial, where, I have this confrontation with this dude,
mhm.
right? And something said that can't be taken back. Now I got to go and get a blade. I go get me this 9 inch bone crusher. And my mindset's locked. You know, he's either going to kill me or I'm going to kill him. But one thing's for sure, something's going to happen, right? We're going to handle this. And so, waiting for the doors to crack in the morning so I could make my move. All of a sudden, here comes security bum rushing my cell, beelining it for me, catch me. You know, there was nothing I could do. So they bust me with that 9 inch bone crusher, write me up and have an ad seg hearing for me.
Which is
And so now I
probably
get out.
when I was reading that, David, I was thinking you might have been saved from that moment because you could have done something really, there was one person was gonna come out of that probably alive. And
Yeah.
and so that you get rushed out of there, and then what happens?
Yeah, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, I'm glad I didn't have to. Looking back on it now, obviously, I'm glad security did come and get me.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was like, somebody snitched on
Mhm.
me, and I'm pissed off now,
Yeah.
sitting in
You can't let it
seg
sit.
and can't let it
Other
sit.
people know
And
about it.
yeah, everybody know, so all, things are happening. And sure enough, they ad seg me and off to CSP I go. And now CSP level 5, now we're talking maximum security, solitary confinement. And in Colorado, unlike California where they double those guys up, you don't have a cellie in Colorado. It's just you in that cold concrete tomb by
No
yourself.
and no sunlight. This is the
No
part of the
sunlight.
this is the part of the book that really
Yeah.
took my breath away because when I got home from prison, there was a TV series on, and I can't remember the name of it right now, but it was like what you're talking about, David. The guys were in white cells, all concrete. They could hear each other. I think they could talk, hear each other through the walls, but there was no sunlight, and they never left. It was, and
Right.
like you said, this was supposed to be 23 hours a day, but as you describe it, it was much more than.
It was more,
Yeah,
yeah, because we only got showers in day hall 5 times
yeah,
out of the week,
yeah.
right? And then if anything happened anywhere, like somebody decides they're gonna go off in another pod, make them do a cell extraction, we lost out on the ability to move even though we were slammed
But you
down,
weren't in there
so
just for a few days. You were in there for a few years,
no,
and what I wanted to ask you about after reading this, because I feel really lucky that very rarely you get to read the book and then actually talk to the author the next day. But when you're in there, because things were more familiar to you when you were Buena Vista, and you had the nice yard. It was, gladiator school, so it was dangerous, and the other place was dangerous, but you were kind of making your way. You get into this place, and this isn't something that you're familiar with.
no,
Um,
no.
Mindset wise, how do you survive it? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, this is where, routines start to become very, very critical, reading, working out, you have, we were able to have TVs in there. So, you had your certain shows, but, yeah, you developed a routine real quick. I learned real fast, you'd wake up in the morning and to avoid laying down all day long, you would fold your mattress up, your bunk up into like a chair or a couch. Right. And, or we'd use the mattress as a curling, we tie the sheets in a certain way to be able to use it to exercise with. I mean, there was a lot of different things, a lot of different routines and tricks that we would use inside those cells to try to, you
Yeah, and the
know,
routine is all
stay,
day
stay
long
active,
because
right?
you're not going anywhere.
Stay active.
They're bringing you the
Yeah,
food. I mean, you're not
yeah.
going anywhere.
You ain't going anywhere, right? And even when you did get recreation time, it was nothing more than another cell on the same tier you were
Mm.
at with the pull-up bar in it. That's all it
And how
was.
big would this cell have been that you were locked into for 24 hours?
It was yeah, it was I mean, obviously none of them cells are big, but comparatively, it was actually the
Just
biggest
a little
cell I
bit
had
bigger?
been
Yeah,
in. Yeah, it was bigger. His Buny cells were small, and we were double bunked. I mean, those cells were
yeah,
tiny, tiny. Centennial cells were fair, but again, it was single cell, so
yeah,
it
1 person.
seemed so much
Yeah,
bigger. And then CSP cells were bigger than that, and but again, they weren't really all that big,
yeah.
But they
Well, I mean, you're spending the whole day in there.
yeah, the whole day. I mean, so I had a lot of pacing sessions, from the bunk to the door, and it was a few steps. So, at least there was a few steps worth of leg room to pace back and forth
Mm.
for a while.
And
Yeah.
then not having sunlight, you talk about being released from there, and I'm trying to remember, David, how you were released from there. What caused your release to go back? I don't know, was it back to Centennial?
No, I went to Ordway
That's
the
right,
first time.
okay.
Yeah, I went to Ordway. So, they had a level system, so the way that in Colorado system, I don't know how other states have their own things. Some people get trapped forever. But in Colorado, they had like this level system. And so as long as you were programming and going through the level system, you could eventually face a board where they would review you and uh, determine whether or not it was almost like a parole board, right?
Yeah,
A prison parole
and
board.
where they would level you
So
up at, okay,
yeah, you level up. Once you make it to level 3, then after level 3 for so long, then you become eligible for this
okay.
reclass, this review. And so I had made it up there, right? I made it and
How many years had
got
it
reclassed.
been that you'd been locked in the solitary cell before you were able to get released to go?
About about two
Yeah, 2
years.
years.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you get released to another prison that you haven't been to.
Right,
What
right.
what happens there?
Well, man, by the time I get there, I've got a reputation already flowing through. So
Yeah,
I touched in the yard, and guys already had heard about me or knew me. I'm pale as all could
yeah,
be. And by this time, my man weight had kicked in, right?
yeah,
All those pull ups and push ups and CSP. I went into CSP. Just imagine this, if you will. I went into CSP about maybe 6 foot tall, 138
yeah,
pounds. I came out of CSP almost 6'1", 200
yeah.
pounds. And so, I'd
A
gotten
transformation
my
happened there
yeah, I got my
physically.
man weight, and Yeah, so here I am walking out, pale as hell, but I'm thick
Is
now. I
the
got some stuff.
is the name Kiko out in this world now?
Yes and no. Like when I introduce myself to people, I introduce myself as David.
Yeah,
But so many people for so many years have known me as Kiko. So I don't shy away from the name,
yeah.
but but it does. I have a new reputation with it now.
Mhm.
And as you read my book and people read my story, they'll see that I actually transformed from Kiko, the gang member that the city of Pueblo was petrified of, that gladiator school didn't want me around. I went from that Kiko to all of a sudden I'm somebody where they're asking to help build
Yeah,
programs.
no,
And
it's unbelievable, and,
uh,
I mean, you went from basically one of the generals or the general on the yard to, mentoring men, and so
yeah,
you get your world is one where, you get into all kinds of stuff, David. I mean, you're a leader in the prison, you're a respected man in the prison. You've got a bunch of loyal people that are part of where you are all together. Um, then you get into this whole thing where narcotics and that type of thing, because and you're not a drug guy. I mean, that was what was interesting about your story is that you would sell drugs or do whatever, but you weren't really taking drugs. But then you
not
had
until about 1999.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then that kind of turned, and
Mhm.
you were having drugs brought in, which I was reading that thinking, I mean, you could die doing what you did, putting those
Mhm.
balloons in and swallowing them down and
Yeah,
then throwing it up, and I think I remember there was someone that died that was in
yeah,
and he just collapsed and was over, but
yeah. I actually knew a few guys that had done that. They swallowed the balloons and the balloons burst into their stomach, and
that was it.
they had passed away. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So when all that started for you, when you're the guy now, and it's interesting because I had Sean Miller on the show Wednesday, and you guys were, um,
Sally's, yeah.
cellies for 13 years, and it kinda
Hmm.
reminded me of Sean and David and then Brent and Romo, because Romo was my first bunkie when I got to Leavenworth, and, there was something that happened between he and I that just he just I guess he just wanted to help me. He just knew that I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And he just looked at me and said, "You've never been here before." He said, "Man, we gotta help you out." And he immediately started to help me with, making my bed military style. He, opened up the locker and said, "Man, we gotta get this cleaned out. Don't put anything in it." He introduced me to a guy to help me get a job. So, you know, that's another thing about, he was a Texas homeboy guy that had leveled down from Beaumont. And
Yeah,
so that was kind of like a gladiator school type deal. And he was trying to get better, he was
yeah.
he didn't want the violence part of it, but, um, that's one of the things too that happens in prison is guys that have been around for a while and know the lay of the land, they will take somebody under their arm that knows that they're not quite and you kinda looked out for this one guy that did a stupid thing.
Hmm.
He spit in
Yeah.
somebody's food, and
Yeah.
and you went
Not somebody's, a whole group
a
of people's
a
food.
whole group of people's food that was, he was gonna die.
Yeah,
And because of who you were and the respect that you had, you went to them and said, "Listen, you
yeah,
know, I think we can do something." Basically a diplomatic outreach that was, you can
yeah,
beat the crap out of him, but don't kill him.
yeah. That's yard politics. Again, that goes everywhere. Those with the influence, we try to mitigate we actually honestly the violence, right? We try
Right.
to mitigate the madness that goes on the yards, because if you have nonstop madness going on the yards, and we're constantly being locked down, and we're constantly being shaken down, nothing, we can't do anything, right? Quality of life goes down. So those who have been around and have the influence, they got the cooler heads, and they understand what the consequences are of if we let something get too far. Now sometimes there's those things where it's going to happen, right? There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Things are going to go wild, and we're all just going to have
Well,
to
and
be
and
ready
one of
and
the
be
things that is probably the main primary thing is respect in prison.
Mhm.
I don't care
Yeah,
what level you're at.
yeah.
Um, the respect thing is I mean, I kinda think if we had that on the outside the way that it is on the
Sure.
inside,
Yeah,
it
you hear that a lot,
but
yeah,
but
definitely, if we had
that
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 on
that
yeah,
you can get a lot of different, twists
a
and
lot of
turns
different
if
scenarios,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, my poor little buddy, though, man, he was a cool little kid, he didn't know
But
what he
you
was doing,
you
but he
looked
was
out
so
for him, and basically saved his
yeah.
life.
Yeah, I did know. Yeah, they were gonna kill him.
Yeah,
He was done, and nobody else was standing up for him, and it was a dumb mistake. He let this clown influencing him
just
into
for
doing
entertainment.
something that was just for
Yeah,
entertainment, and it was one of those things again. Like I'm not trying to overhype this. This was one of those things that would cost somebody their
yeah,
lives in prison.
yeah.
And man, so I went to the fellas and I talked to them, and I told them I said, look, man, I first off, I ain't if they're gonna get him, I'm not gonna stop them from getting, because I can't you can't justify what he done,
Right.
right? And so all I could really do was utilize my influence to kind of plead with
Well,
them
the other
and
thing
offer
too, David, is they saw it wasn't only that he spit in their food, people saw that he did it.
they
Yeah,
saw it, yeah, they saw it, and this was a religious meal, and so you can't do that,
right,
right? And so, I go to him and I ask him, I said, hey, man, look, he's a young kid. He's stupid. He deserves consequence. First off, he deserves consequence because if I was in their shoes, I know what I would have wanted
right.
to do to the kid. Right. And so I'm like, man, just if you would just send your hitter in, right? Send one of your heavy hitters in and put a whooping on this kid.
Yeah,
And oh my God, that they did too. They agreed to it. They sent in this monster on this kid, and this dude offered up an ass whooping for this guy unlike he's probably ever had in his entire life. And
but he didn't
yeah,
die.
he no, he didn't die, but he had to stay in that cell for a couple of weeks to
Yeah.
recuperate from the beating that he took. But he didn't die, and he's the kid's still my friend to this day. He's out, he's doing good. Yeah, he was
Well,
a good kid.
let's step into the next chapter of this transformation thing that starts to happen. Um, because I think part of what happened, David, is you started reading some things that started to kind of resonate with you. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People was something that
Yeah.
really became a big part of your life. Not only for you, but then as it went on, you began to teach it, and it became a part of a
Mhm.
rhythm and flow of how you lived your life. Can you kind of lead us into we know it didn't happen all at once, but how did it
No.
start to happen?
Yeah, so I mean, I remember I was sitting in CSP ad seg for the third time,
Yeah.
right? I'd actually been ad seg multiple times, so I'm sitting in the CSP for the third time, and I remember one night I was hungry, and so I holler up to a friend of mine, and I ask him if he had something to eat. Now I'm on the bottom tier, he's up on the top tier, and he says, "Yeah, because the pods there were 16-man pods, eight,
Mhm.
16 cells, and 8 cells on the bottom tier, 8 cells on the top tier, kind of like a V-shaped tier system." And so he's like, "Yeah, man." He goes, "Send out the line." So the fishing line. The audience, your audience,
Yeah.
probably all know what a fishing line is, right? And so he shoots out his fishing line, and I remember watching the little flattened tooth paste tube come flying off the top tier, and I send out my line, and I snag it up, and I'm pulling it in, and he had crushed up this granola bar because he had to smash it up. It was a chocolate chewy
Mhm.
granola,
Mhm.
so he smashes this thing up, and then I'm on my hands and knees, and I'm pulling this thing in into my sow, and as I'm pulling it in, I kind of have this little aha moment, this realization. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, "Oh my God, this is it, right? This is the best this world has to offer me.
Mm.
I'm at the top of my game. My name's known in the system at the time. In Colorado. I'm not nationwide or anything like that, but
You're
in
known.
my area,
Yeah.
I'm known. And this is it. This is the pinnacle of this existence because everybody who was about it, this is where they were at, right? All the dudes that were putting in the real dirt,
Mhm.
they were in ad seg. They were slammed down 24/7.
Mhm.
And I'm like, man, this is it. Not only is this it for me, but I started to think about this is the best that I have to offer my people, right? All the people I profess to love, everybody I care about. This is the legacy I have for them.
Mhm.
And if you ain't in one of these boxes with me, then you really aren't 100% about this life,
Mhm.
right? And that didn't sit right with me. That was a moral dilemma that hit this switch inside my head that I couldn't shake off. And so I'm sitting there thinking about that. I get this granola bar and I'm eating my granola bar and I'm pondering the whole event and how sad this is that here I am, top of my game, and I'm having. And it wasn't that I didn't have money, is that you can only order like $20 worth of canteen in ad seg. So I ran out of food.
Mhm.
So for as powerful as I thought I was, I couldn't even walk to the store to get me something to eat when I was hungry,
Mhm.
and so this is it, and I'm like, man. But I started to think too, okay, something's got to give, something's got to change here, but what do I change to,
Mhm.
right? What do I change? My whole frame of reference, my whole life, my whole existence, except for that one really good man that I mentioned earlier, John Solis. What was this, right? All my idols, everybody I looked up to and aspired to be by this point,
Mhm.
were buried inside of one of these concrete tombs right along with me.
Yeah.
So what do I change to? And how do you change, right? How do you change when the only world you ever known since you was a little boy, your dad giving you war stories and tips on how to survive prison? How do you change,
Mhm.
right? Because this is all I've ever done since I was 11 years old in them foster homes from the very first time, all the way up through juvenile to Lookout Mountain, and then straight to the penitentiary. How do you change? And then why change, right? Why change? I'm doing life without the possibility of parole
Mhm.
at this point. If I change, what changes? Right? What changes? And so these are questions that are in my head, but I can't get past the fact that the only thing I have to offer all the people I claim to love, all the defense of everything, this so-called cause, the only thing I had to give was one of these boxes, one of these tombs.
Mm.
That was a throne I had to leave behind, and I couldn't sit with that, and so I struggled with that, and I end up in territorial, the Colorado Territorial Correctional Facility, where an individual uh, tells me about 7 habits. He says, "Man, you need to take this course,"
Mm.
and so I sign up for 7 habits, and there's this roadmap for me. I mean, there's this roadmap of the how,
Mhm.
right? How to change. Here we are. We're talking about paradigms and
Mhm.
principles. Your paradigms, the patterns you expect to see, how you see the world. It was like, wow, okay, my mindset. Here's this mindset that's got me
Mhm.
kind of twisted up. I think I have a good vision of the world because I cared about my friends, I cared about my people, and so. But my mental map was telling me, in order to be able to gain status and protect your people and to provide for your people, was through this violence, right?
Mhm.
Through drugs and through
Right.
violence. And I'm like, okay, I need to shift my paradigm on how I see how we're supposed to do these. What does love really look like? What does love really mean, right? What is respect? What does that word respect actually mean? How is my paradigm of the word respect versus what respect is actually supposed to be about? So I started to challenge those paradigms. Then you get into habit one, right? Be proactive. And in that habit one, Dr. Covey talks about the circle of influence and circle of concern.
Mhm.
And most people live in the circle of concern where you have absolutely no control. He identifies 3 types of control: no control, direct control, and indirect control. And as I started to really dig deep into the meaning of that symbol, that analogy that he puts out there with the circle of influence and circle of concern, I realized, man, my whole life had been this circle of concern. I was trying to control things that I had
Zero
zero
control
control
over. Yeah.
zero control over, right? All of these political things that drive people in prison,
Yeah.
and talk about the respect, right? You can't do certain things, or you
Right.
can't have certain kinds of values or anything like that
Right.
because you're wrong now. And then in my world, especially in the gang world, now all of a sudden, if you're born on the opposite side of town, now I got to hate you, right? And this
Right.
this is something beyond your control. But here's this imaginary boundary that we drew, this line in the sand, and if you're not on that, if you're on that side of the land, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And by me beating you, killing you, or somehow I'm making this is right, right? So, anyways, when I really came to terms with the idea that I need to get out of that circle of concern and start focusing on my circle of influence, those things I did have
Mhm.
control over, which was myself, how I responded to things, how I did things,
Mhm.
right? Which is another principle Covey talks about: stimulus versus response,
Mhm.
right? And that space, that freedom to choose, and exercising those 4 human endowments. I mean, oh man, all of this stuff really, it blew
Really
my
got
mind.
with
And
you. Yeah.
it really got with me, and I got a roadmap now. We get into habit two, begin with the end in mind, and you start talking about legacy,
Mhm.
right? Talking about legacy. I'm tripping because I'm thinking the only legacy I have to leave my people is that too.
Mhm.
what is my legacy? Who do I want to be?
Mhm.
Right at the end of the day, at the end of my life, what did I want to have left behind
Yeah,
for a legacy,
yeah.
right? For my people to
And
come
that's
up
not,
on.
that's not unlike anybody. It just so happened that you were sitting in a prison cell. People get older and they start thinking about how am I going and it's not about money. It's not it's what connections you were
Yeah.
able to do or what impact were you able to make.
What impact were you able to leave behind? That's right. And so I started out. Now, not only did it give me a roadmap for the how, but all of a sudden the what and the why started to take
Mhm.
shape, right? Because I still care about my people. I still
Sure.
love my
Right.
people. But what that idea of love and respect and unity, what that means to me now is something completely different than what it meant before.
Okay.
So, like, I let that stuff go, and now I still, as you know, and we'll probably talk about here later, I still go into the
Oh,
prisons.
yeah.
I still reach into those. The field of work that I do now is all about affecting change, positive change in
Exactly.
the criminal justice realm, right? And so, yeah, 7 Habits, man, that program
Well, it
completely
gave you a
helped.
map. At a
Yeah,
time that you were looking, you were reading something that was a map,
that was a map.
and
Yeah,
that's what you were looking for.
that's right.
But here's the thing, David, that now I know that it's a hell of a lot different in the camp level than it is when you're in maximum security. But I do know one thing: when people decide that they want to change, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do because
Oh, no.
you don't go anywhere. You have to
Right.
just start being with different people and you have to cut ties on different things. How did that work for you? Because all of a sudden the guy that is it's like, you know, the leader of all of this is all of a sudden saying, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I might just take this path instead." So how does that work?
So, and I think that, and I think most people can agree on this. Some systems may disagree or have a different perspective. But so when I got out of CSP that last time, they actually sent me back to Buny, right? The
Yeah,
the
all the way
facility
back
that
to where you began.
and so I'm struggling, right? Because this wasn't just some linear thing. I went through years of dealing with
And
that
think
that
it let's
that
let's
how.
give it some time to this. So this would be at this time, you've gone all the way through the system and you've built
Yeah,
this big name up for yourself. Everybody
right,
knows who David is. Now
right.
you're back at Buena Vista. How many years have gone by now?
Oh, so yeah, I'd already been in the system by this time, what, over 10
Okay.
years. So I'm in Buny. It's 2004. I get
Okay.
there, and I immediately get back involved in everything. I'm still involved in the politics.
Yeah.
I'm still calling shots. I'm still doing things, and um, but I'm wanting to change again. I just didn't know how
Mhm.
to, right? So I'm kind of winging it, if you will,
Yeah.
right? I'm doing what's natural and instinctual to
And
me,
then learning
but
about this over here on the other side. Yeah. I
yeah,
got it.
but I'm learning about different things, and I'm trying different things up. I started up a business in Buny. I started having different conversations, right, about ideas of business instead of, how can we get the dope in,
Mhm.
right? And so I'm walking this balancing act of still being who I am because this is all I've ever known to being uh trying to be something different, trying to find something different.
Mhm.
And so I'm doing all of this, and then it got to the point where I finally had the courage to go ahead and write my higher ups, right? And so I write to my people and I say, hey man, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I don't want to continue to put somebody in a position I myself no longer want to be in,
Mhm.
right? I don't want to be in prison for the rest of my life. So why am I going to put somebody in a position that's possibly going to get them a life
Mhm.
sentence? I don't want to be an ad seg anymore. I don't want to keep going back and forth to CSP. So if I don't want to be an ad seg anymore, segregation period, uh, what am I going to do why am I going to keep putting somebody in a position that's going to put them where I myself no longer wanted to be? I couldn't do it as a man,
Mhm.
right? As a man, forget all the rest of the stuff, right? As a man, I couldn't put another man in a position me myself didn't want to be in.
Mhm.
And remember, I was the frontliner. I was the first one to throw the punch. And so now, if I don't want to be the one to throw the punch, why am I going to send somebody else to do it? To me, that's weak. That's
Mhm.
not a man, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so I finally get the balls and I write to my people and I say, hey man, I need to step down. I can't do this anymore. I'm asking for permission. If you let me step, this is what I'm doing. And I write everybody, right? I mentioned this. I even wrote to a couple individuals who I honestly didn't even respect, right? But
Right.
they they were supposed to be
Yeah,
somebody, so just to cover all bases, I even wrote people I didn't think were shit,
yeah,
but I wrote them
yeah.
anyways, um, and I got the permission, they said, "Go ahead," and this was what I was starting to say earlier is that, like, even me, like, when somebody would come to me and say, "Hey, I'm walking with the Lord
Mhm,
now," or "I wanna do right by my family,"
mhm,
we'd give them that blessing, right?
mhm,
Where most people run afoul when they walk away from this type of stuff is it's not that they wanted to walk away for good reasons, right? It's they just don't want that label, right? Or whatever. They're trying to
mhm.
to manipulate some system, but they're still doing the stuff.
Right. They're
They're
not
still
walking away
gambling.
from the
Yeah, they're
lifestyle,
yeah,
they're
they're walking
walking
away.
away from
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. They're walking away from the gang,
mhm,
but not the lifestyle.
yeah,
They're still living that lifestyle. So they're still getting caught up in debt,
yeah,
right? Poker debts, store
right,
debts,
right,
drug debts,
yeah,
and they're bringing a bad name to the gang because like everybody's coming to the gang where this dude owes money to. Is like, hey, ain't this your homeboy? How come he's not paying his debts, right? And so that's when these dudes that walk away really get in trouble. That's when it really gets bad for them.
yeah,
But for those who walked away from the gang, for honest reasons and they were sincere about it,
yeah.
that there are stories around the country
Well,
of
and you
of
had
men
built
who have
up
been
a
able to
lot
do
of
that.
respect within the
Yeah,
organization with all the different prisons you were at, so I can understand if they would have thought, "Hey, David, we know David. If he's going
yeah.
this way, then whatever it is, it's important to him."
Yeah, and it's not to say I did have some issues because, I mean, I put in some dirt myself,
Yeah,
I had some people that were pissed off at me over the years, and so when word got out that I was starting to step, oh my goodness, the sharks started to smell
mhm,
that blood in the water, so they were swimming, they were circling and trying to take it. So, I had a few little hiccups when I first walked away, but as everybody started to see that my
it
walk,
was
my
real.
path was real,
Mhm,
that drama began to fade away, right?
yeah,
I stopped hearing as much of some of that hate that was being spewed by some of those people that were just trying to get people against me because I had once upon a time made these guys bow
right.
down.
And I know that, so you run across a thing where you see that you can get an associate's degree
Hmm.
and,
Yeah.
but you can't afford it.
Right.
And I think that at that time you reach out to your sister.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I was curious, like when all this time was going on, were you and your sister staying in touch with, or did you have to reach out
Yeah.
to her like it was out of nowhere and say, "Hey, I made a change," or were you guys
No.
in conversations and communications with each other?
Yeah, no, actually, for the most part, my sister was my sole support system. Well, I shouldn't say my soul, but consistently,
Yeah,
right, from start to end, my sister had always been there for me. And so, I mean, she was even part of one of my uh, how could I say it? I don't know the right term to use, but she was like an inspiration for me
yeah.
to be able to make the change because I looked at my sister and
Oh
I
yeah,
think about all the
you
traumatic
tell this in the
experience.
book where she's
Yeah.
gone to the I'll let you tell the story.
Yeah, I mean, she experienced even more trauma than me and my brother did, but she endured that stuff, right?
Yeah,
And then when she graduated from high school, instead of running away from home, instead of getting involved in drugs, instead of being pregnant by the time she was 15
yeah,
years old, she didn't do any of that stuff. She wasn't living off of the state, and her escape was once she graduated, she went to the Navy
mhm,
and she got some training in the Navy, became quite successful and built a good family of her own and was had a great job making a good income
mhm,
and she was taking care of me.
yeah,
And so when I decided to start making a change in my life and educating myself, I reached out to her and I asked her if she would be willing to help me with this, and that was something she was more than willing to help me out with, right? If I'd
it's
asked
a
her, hey,
good
can
path.
I
Yeah,
yeah, it was a great call, "Can I borrow some money so I can buy some dope?" She'd probably be like,
yeah,
"Yeah, no, I don't have any money
right,
right now."
right,
But when I sent her the application and told her I wanted to work on my education, she was all in, 100% support. And so, yeah, I did. I started working on my associate's degree because at the time we didn't have the Pell Grants back,
yeah,
right? We got the Pell Grants back now, but we didn't have them during the time I was inside. They'd went away with the '93 crime bill, right?
yeah,
The crime bills of the '90s. Um, and so I started working on my associate's degree, and I completed. I get my associate's degree. And, talking about pride earlier,
Yeah.
respect and all. I mean, all of a sudden, I felt this pride that was something completely different, and found after I completed that, there was another advertisement for Adams State University, and they were offering a full bachelor's program. And so I looked into it, and I signed up for the Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration with an emphasis in legal studies, and completed that and got my bachelor's degree. All while in prison, SIS is helping me pay for it. I'm earning some scholarships, so I'm able to help pay for some of it myself because I had won several scholarship awards. And then
Which is,
during
you'd
this,
always made good grades even when you were a younger kid. I mean, you had the smarts all along.
yeah, it wasn't,
It was just
yeah, it
applying
wasn't.
it to what.
Yeah, it was the application,
Yeah.
right? It is nothing. I often tell my students now, knowledge isn't power; it's the application of knowledge that's
Exactly,
power,
right.
right? It's because I was never a dummy. I just did what it was is
Yeah,
I just didn't know what to do with the stuff that
right.
I think I knew. Yeah, I finished my bachelor's of science in business administration, and by this time, I actually had met this attorney, and I started doing consulting work for this attorney, and I'm starting to make my own money now, working for this lawyer under the table,
Yeah.
But still, the guy was an amazing guy. He was an amazing mentor, and it was
How
fun
did you
doing work
meet
for
him,
him because
David?
I filed a lawsuit. I filed a lawsuit, and he came in on the 12th hour and helped me to push this lawsuit forward. And he'd seen the work product that I had done and was
He
impressed
was
with the work
impressed with your
product I
work.
had done. And yeah,
Yeah.
and so we had because I had filed everything. He got to come in
Oh,
right
that's yeah.
after all the work that I had done, and so
Attorneys love that.
uh, yeah, yeah, and so, yeah, we ended up striking up a really good friendship, and one thing led to another. I started to work for him. I started doing, research for him, right? He would have, legal questions, and I would go and spend hours in the law library and, write a memo to him, and it was fun too because I would send this memo to him, this memorandum of, what the results were I found for the legal question that he had posed to me, and then he would send it back to me with the, markings of, he graded my paper
Oh,
basically,
yeah.
right? If
Edited
there
it.
was, yeah, he edited it. If there was errors with the,
Yeah,
grammar or
yeah.
structure, he was all over me on that. But I loved it. It was awesome. It helped me to become a better writer. And so with that, after I completed my bachelor's degree, I saw another article or advertisement for the master's degree. Adam State had just started to offer up a master's degree program through
Mhm.
correspondence, and so signed up for that. Took the journey. Earned my master's in business administration, and I did it during
Yeah, I
COVID.
wanna
So
talk about that because this part of I didn't want you to skip over this because when COVID hit, it goes back to, like, CSP where you're actually locked down,
yeah,
can't go
lockdown.
anywhere, but you've got these things that have to be you can't use a word processor, you can't go to the
Mhm.
library, and you're writing all this stuff out, getting it through the
Yeah.
mail. I mean, when I went to that chapter there, I was like, "Man, I don't know how David did this." And you did it, and you got it, and man, that had to ma I can't imagine how that made you feel.
Oh no, it was awesome. It was amazing, right? I was very proud, and yeah, it was, what is it? When there's will, there's a way. I
Yeah,
wanted to
and
finish my master's degree, and I had the time. You say you don't know how to do it. I did it, but I mean, even though I didn't have access to the resources
yeah,
I needed to be able for like the references, the citations, APA format, full reference page with everything has to be cited properly. So I would like write out and I would ask for articles and
yeah,
stuff like that, and I'd get the articles sent in, and that's how I was able to get my resource information. So it took a lot. It took longer, right? It took me 6 years to finish my MBA when it should have actually only took two.
yeah, well, I
um,
can't even but all this during
so
COVID,
yeah, most of it, yeah, during
and
COVID is,
the other thing that's it's an emotional part of the book too is that, they bring you all to the visiting room, and your sister I think your sister is there. No,
no,
she's
no,
not there.
she's actually not, no, she's not there.
She's
She wasn't able to be
she
there.
wasn't
Yeah.
able to be there, but this moment of
Yeah.
of accomplishment and in a
Accomplishment, yeah.
prison, you
Yeah.
know, uh, well,
Yeah, after the lockdowns, right? When COVID ended, the lockdowns, they had a graduation
yeah,
ceremony for everybody, right? For all the guys who had finished their certificate programs. I had a little buddy who had actually during COVID, he had finished his associate's degree.
mhm.
And so we come out, and he got his associate's degree through Adams State, also the school that I had earned my master's from. So Adams State showed up to this graduation ceremony, and everybody, all the guys that are there getting their certificates for like computer information systems, janitorial,
Mhm.
all these different programs and stuff, right? Culinary arts and
Yeah,
all of these programs that we had. They're getting their certificates, and there goes my little buddy up to get his associate's degree, and then they come up and they actually brought the hood in. DLC,
yeah,
the facility let them bring my master's hood in, so they did the ceremony where they put the master's hood on me and everything, and I'm so proud, and I'm just swimming with
yeah.
emotions because it
Well,
was
you can
just
feel it in
amazing.
the book. If you
Yeah,
f you feel that, and I'm assuming Sean Miller was he also doing all this?
Sean,
Yeah,
Sean was there too.
your
Yeah, Sean
bunkie.
was. Yeah, I think he hadn't earned his associates yet, but
Yeah.
he was there for something else, I
It's
believe,
funny when he
and
talks about meeting you because he's this
yeah,
white collar guy who gets a lot of time. He had 14 years, but
yeah,
or no, he 40
yeah,
years and then he got knocked down to serving 14. But
yeah, I used to mess with him all the time about, because he got in trouble for really not reporting,
yeah,
right?
right.
And I was like, "Bro, if you'd have just stole the money, dude, we'd
Exactly.
be
You,
rich
you'd
right
be
now."
better off
I'd,
5
I'd
years.
yeah, I'd send somebody to go dig it up right now. Well, you'd have been out years ago, but like, yeah,
But he
but
talks about well, you guys were both in the training the dog program, but
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
we were both in the
you ran into each other on the track there, and he didn't know quite what because he knew who you were, and at that time you still
yeah,
had that reputation,
yeah, yeah.
and then you guys
Yeah,
became
I was still shaking that reputation off. I was on a path towards the positivity, but I was still shaking that
hadn't gone
reputation
away.
off. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just funny to hear Sean tell the story. But then you guys become great friends, and then become
Yeah.
bunkmates for 13 years, which is
13 years, yeah, that is my longest Sally, my longest lasting standing
yeah,
Sally.
it's crazy.
But no, he was a great guy and a great Sally to have, right?
Yeah,
Because I mean, he had this knowledge about him. He might not have been, he wasn't from the streets, which I appreciated
yeah,
that, because now here was this level of sophistication that he brought to the
yeah,
conversations. That were, that surrounded what I was studying. I mean, I'm studying
yeah,
business, right? I'm studying
exactly.
business administration, and his understanding and comprehension of the business realm is
Oh,
phenomenal.
yeah. He
And
built a big business. I mean,
oh yeah,
Mueller,
the dude
Capital
was
was
a
huge.
beast. Yeah,
Millions
yeah,
over $100,000,000 he was managing at the times. Yeah, it was
right,
a big
yeah,
deal.
and it was, and then this is my Sally, and I'm like, yeah, I'm soaking this up right here, so
Yeah,
yeah, it was great. But yeah, so yeah, we get into there, and they give me that award, and now we're mingling, right? The graduation ceremony is over, and people were mingling, eating. They had little cakes and juice and stuff, right? Snacks, and the people from Adams State approached me, and they asked me, "Would you like a job?" And I'm like, "What?" My mind's still swimming with the emotions of
right.
the award, and they're like, "You want a job?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, sure." They're like, "Yeah, we'd like you to be a college professor. We'd like you to teach for us."
Mhm.
And I'm like, Okay."
I mean,
All
what
right."
were you thinking, David? I mean, that would have had to have blown my mind if I was in prison, especially as long as you've been at that point, and somebody walks up to you and says, "You wanna be a college professor in prison and teach inmates in
Yeah.
prison, and you be in
And
here
and
and you
and
get
and we're
paid?"
gonna yeah, and we're gonna pay you, and that's what they told me too, and we're gonna pay you, and I mean, I like, there was no saying no for one,
Yeah,
right? But as far as what I was thinking, I gotta tell you, like, again, there was such an emotional moment. Like, my head was like
yeah,
this, like the ocean, right? It was like just waves crashing inside of my head. I'm surprised I didn't fall down and pass out, because I mean, it was just so overwhelming with everything that was going on that day. And then to cap it off with this offer of a job where I'd actually be paid. Uh, and it was like, yeah, absolutely. And because by this time too, I understand my mission had absolutely changed, right? Like I said, the why of the change had taken shape, and this was, I was going to do everything that I could to help set my people up. And my people had expanded now,
yeah,
right? It wasn't just limited by the gang. My people was everybody that was inside
yeah.
the
You were gonna
penitentiary.
educate and get them ready for
I was going to educate them. Anybody who wanted to stand up, rise up, and do something
yeah,
good for themselves, so they can get home and stay home.
mhm.
I was committed to help and be that
You
change
were
agent, right?
committed to that, and you were also not getting you were a lot of those guys were getting to leave, but you weren't.
But I wasn't, right. I was doing life without all my courts were done. I had already exhausted all of my appeals. So I was done. I was doing life, and but it didn't matter that I was doing life because my mission in life now had become helping to affect positive change in men's lives that would help to get them home and keep them home. Right. I didn't want to keep seeing them come back. I had another friend who was doing life who was teaching 7 Habits with me. His name's Greg Bowers, and he often said, "Man," he goes, "I want to help set you guys up because I'm tired of you frittering away something I'll never ever have."
Yeah,
And that's that second chance at life. And
yeah,
I actually used to tease that dude. I'd be like, "Man, I wish I could make parole so I can violate and come back." And
exactly.
be like, you know, message, forget you,
Well,
Kiko, and
and speaking of violating and coming back, I don't wanna just pass over the fact that you had your dad, um, and he shows up in your prison,
mhm, yeah,
and
yeah,
he's sick.
yeah, yeah,
Um, Man, this was, like, one of the most powerful parts of the book, David. I mean, here's a man that you've had this complicated relationship with all your life,
yeah,
but he's trying to show
yeah,
you what he knew. It wasn't probably what I mean, for him, it was to teach you the survival things of what he thought you needed to know,
yeah.
um, but then you end up
And I came to what you said there, I came to realize this later, right? I mean, I had a lot of anger and hatred towards my dad, and then
yeah,
I came to realize when he was there that, he was doing the best he could to try to
yeah,
make sure
what
I
he
was
knew,
okay, and he knew,
yeah.
yeah.
Uh, what what were your what swims through your mind when you see your dad walk through the prison that because you and I have some similarity on this, but we're not at the same prison. My dad, got a longer sentence than me. He got a 10-year sentence, I got a 5-year sentence, and so we would communicate through,
Right.
the core link system, True Links, but your dad actually walked through the gates there and entered your prison.
Yeah. Yeah, he'd caught a murder case himself, right? And he ended up with a life sentence, very late on in life, and it was actually kinda wild because actually prior to my dad, showing up on the yard, I had just lost my son. My son was shot and killed by the police in a domestic violence call, and so I was hurting and struggling over the loss of my son. And then here comes my dad, and he's coming because Territorial had the infirmary, and he's showing up to the infirmary for hospice.
Mhm,
He's already dying. He's got dying of liver
mhm,
failure. Now, for anybody who's ever seen anybody die of hepatitis C, right? It's an ugly, horrible death. And so here comes my dad, and he's in the infirmary, and they let me go over, and I go and I see him, and here's this little man now, right? I mean, like, he was a giant, he was a
mhm,
monster to me once upon a time, and now here's this
mhm,
this little man who I know is dying. And uh, for as much as I wanted to hate him, and as much as I wanted to, like, just vent and get out all those things that I've been holding in for all those years, it it didn't make a
mhm.
difference. It was unnecessary. What was it gonna do? Make my dad's last few, uh, moments on this earth miserable just out of spite, out of meanness? No, I couldn't do it. And then on top of this is my dad, right? For all the ills, that was still my father, and, my sister loved my father, and I love my sister, and there was no way I was gonna disappoint and let down my sister and not take care of my dad. And so I began to take care of my dad. The facility, by this time, I had built a positive reputation. Right now, my reputation has taken this complete 180, and so they were very, very accommodating about letting me go in every day to take care of my dad. So I would go in, and I would sit with my dad throughout the day, and I would make sure he was taken care of, and make sure if he wanted a soup, I'd cook his soup for him, and make his coffee. uh, it had got to the point to where, as he started to deteriorate, I was having to bathe my dad. I was giving him baths, and
What was your
carrying him to the.
communication like, David, with him?
It was mostly just me listening to him.
Mhm,
I wanted to let him talk.
mhm,
And he was the same old mean cuss he was all his life,
yeah,
right? But I was listening to him with different
mhm,
ears. Covey teaches in Habit 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood, right?
right,
Empathic listening. And so I began to listen to my dad more empathically. and instead of expectantly,
Mhm.
right, with the expectations of what he should be saying to me,
Mhm.
and I should be getting what I want out of these conversations. I wasn't listening to him with the expectation. I was listening to him empathically,
Mhm.
and listening to his stories and listening to his wants and his needs. And again, he was still who he was, but it's who he was. How he was brought up. What happened to him to make him the way that he was. That's what I was listening to. And I remember I did get upset because he would often ask me to get a hold of my aunts, his sisters, and ask for pictures of the family.
Mm.
And none of these people would respond to me. And I mean, they weren't responding to me before, anyways. I didn't.
Right.
I had lost contact with all of these people, nonetheless.
Mhm.
But they were my aunties, right? But this is their brother,
Right.
and they're not responding, and a kind of a bitterness is now starting to grow in me over them
Mhm.
because they're not responding to me, and I'm getting mad about a whole lot of other things, right? And so now I'm the kind of there now, and I'm defending my dad and more understanding of the loneliness and the pain that he was going through, and then so yeah, our conversations were mostly just I'd listen to his stories, and he'd tell me the same old stories over, because he'd actually lived for probably I'd say he was there probably 3 4 months before he finally passed away,
Yeah.
and then the day that he did pass away, I remember walking into the infirmary early in the morning, and his cell door they had this black curtain over the window because that's what they would do when somebody passed away. They put this black curtain over the door so nobody could look in, and they opened up the door and they actually let me into the room, and I remember walking up to the bed, and there's my father laying there, and, I'm looking down on my father, and just it was strange. It was like, and you hear this a lot, and it was true for me too, is like, it was hard to believe that he was dead because I kept thinking I saw him breathing.
Mhm.
I would think that I would see his chest moving, but he was gone. He wasn't there anymore, and it was weird, and so I'm sitting there, and I'm crying, and, tears are rolling down my eyes, and I began to think, "Oh my god, this is my future
Mhm.
now, right? This is gonna be me here someday. One of these days, I'm gonna be in one of these cells, and I'm gonna be gone."
Mm.
But the difference is I'm not gonna have my son there to take care of me
Right.
because, my son was gone.
Mhm.
And so it affected me. It impacted me bad, to the point to where my biggest supporter, my inspiration. I had called her up, my baby sister, and I told her, you know what, I'm not calling you anymore. I was done. I was done with the world. I wasn't done with my mission or my purpose, but I was done with the world, right?
Mhm.
Because it wasn't real for me, right? It didn't seem like it was going to be real for me. So I needed to rip the band-aid off and say, you know what, I'm going to stop looking outside. I'm going to focus on what I'm doing in here.
Mhm.
And that's it. And so I call my sister, I call my friends, anybody who supported me. I was like, I'm done with all you people out there. And I walked away from everybody for a while, and I even started growing out a beard. I mean,
Mhm.
I grew out a big old beard, and was ready to just say, you know, this is my life. I'm going to die here, so just own it and accept it. And then it was the loss of my mom just a few months later that kind of like
Brought you back out.
snapped. Yeah, because my mom ended up dying of the exact same thing that my father had died of.
Gosh, that's
Right?
amazing.
She had a liver failure. My auntie, her twin sister, had found her in the bathroom, and when my mom died and I got called down to the chapel and they told me what had happened, I started communicating with my sister again because I didn't want, had all those strained relationships, all those lost opportunities to be able to mend those bridges, to fix those bridges and stuff. They were gone forever.
Mm.
They weren't coming back,
Mm.
and so I didn't want to have that regret and that weight on my heart of letting my sister go away without, you know,
Yeah.
something. And so we started talking again, and I got a hold of my friends, and I apologized to my friends who were there for me because it wasn't any of their fault,
No.
But I was hurting, and I was trying to come to terms with the hurt and the reality of what I was dealing with. Right? I mean, I'm sitting in here for life. And I didn't even pull the trigger, and I'm the only one doing life now. I'm the only one serving life without the possibility of parole. Everybody that was involved in my case, and that was hard to
Oh,
do.
yeah.
And
I would
then
think that would be incredibly difficult to deal with, especially when you're dealing with someone, uh, knowing the disparity and seeing it.
right.
It's not like you didn't know about it. you saw it and saw what the other sentences were and how those were the played out. Well, let's switch to the fun and exciting stuff of when you didn't give up hope on clemency.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't give up hope on clemency. Well, it was one of those things where I didn't ever believe I was going to get out, but at the same time, I never gave up hope,
Yeah.
right? And so when I was teaching Seven Habits for all those years, and I was working on all my degrees, I used to tell all my guys, because they would ask me, right, what are you doing? What are you doing with your time here and stuff? And I'm like, look, bro, if that door ever swings open for me, I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring,
Mhm.
but if it ever swings open for me, I want to be ready to hit the ground running,
Right.
right? And so I prepared myself, and I never gave up the fight, right? I kept fighting. So when Governor Hickenlooper came into office, and everybody started putting their petitions for clemency, and I put my petition for clemency, and not as quick as some, but I did. I put my petition for clemency, and I remember waiting. So I filed this petition. Now understand, at the time, with under Governor Hickenlooper, I actually was ineligible for clemency, but they had these waiver
Mhm.
options, right? So if you met certain criteria, you can ask for a waiver, and they would
Which
hear
you
your
did.
petition,
You met it.
which I did. And so uh, the waiver was disparity in sentencing. And so I put in my petition. I'm thinking I at least have the waiver, right? I don't know if he's going to grant me clemency, because clemency is still a rare thing, but everybody was hopeful because Hickenlooper was this liberal, he
Mhm.
was this Democrat. And so everybody's like, oh, yeah, they're going to let you out. They're going to let you out. Well, turns out not so much, right? Hickenlooper didn't even start his clemency board until his second year of his final term
Yeah.
in office, right? And so 2 years he has a board put together to review packets and send to him for final say. And so I remember when he it was late November into early, or late I'm sorry, late October into early November. Letters started rolling in, right? I mean, just about everybody in the penitentiary had filed for clemency,
Mhm.
because everybody thought Hickenlooper was just going to let everybody go. And so here comes the denial letters, right? Legal mail would get called. You'd hear the announcement over the intercom, report to the office for legal mail, report to the office. So all these names started getting called, and we knew when your name was called, if you weren't expecting a legal letter from something else,
This was
this
it.
was your
Yeah.
denial. Yeah, and so every day from the time them letters started coming up in all through November into beginning of December, every day during mail call, I'm pacing the tier, waiting
I
for my
can't
name to be called.
imagine, David. That's so much to
Yeah,
wait
oh
for.
my god, it was so,
It must have moved
and
like
everybody knew, they'd laugh
molasses.
at me too, because I'm walking, I'm hitting the tier back and forth, and everybody's looking up at me, and and then comes the end of the denial letters. Nobody's getting any more denial letters, and I didn't get one. I'm thinking, oh man, I might be going home. Cool. I didn't get one. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited. And then it was around Christmas time, and Hickenlooper announces the names of the people who he gave clemency to, and my name wasn't on that list either.
Mm.
And I'm like, what the heck? What's going on here? And so the associate warden at the time, who I had developed a pretty good working relationship with, he goes and he looks into it and finds this letter that's 3 years old, denying my petition for clemency. And it messed me up, because I'll never forget this. The letter says, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, that, your waiver was denied. Waivers are reserved for extraordinary circumstances such as disparity in
Which was your
sentencing.
whole
And I'm
file.
sitting there like, oh, my heart dropped. And I was just like, you sons, and so,
Didn't even look
it
at
just,
it.
more confirmation that, destiny says I'm going to die in
Yeah.
prison, nothing's going to
How
happen
did you
for me.
handle that? Because I mean, you had some things, some tools you were working with at that time, David,
No,
to be more on the right path mentally, but that's a hell
yeah.
of a blow.
Yeah, it is, but when you've been hit enough, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember the very first time I got into a fight, the very first time I got beat up, it hurt,
Yeah.
and it was scary, and it was petrifying, and it was painful. And then there came a point where I wasn't afraid anymore. Now I'm the one throwing the first punch,
Yeah.
because I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the fight. I love the toe to toes.
Mhm.
I thrived on those kind of things. So it was like, I've been hit by this stuff so many times, even though it sucked. I still don't like to get punched in the nose, even though I
Right.
love the toe to toes. I hate to get punched in the nose, right? And uh I got punched in the nose, and it sucked,
Yeah.
but I wiped the snot off, and I kept moving forward. I kept working, moving forward towards my mission. You know, I had a
That's why I ask you that, because that's what I love about this, because you've got a choice to make, and sometimes it's a real binary choice. You
right.
either just don't do it again, you give up, "Wasn't for me, I'll never make it," all the negatives. Uh, "I
Yeah,
can't do this, I can't do that, I wasn't meant for this, I'm a victim of
yeah.
that, I'm a victim of this." But no, you just decided that, "Okay, I'm dusting myself off, I'm getting back
Dusting
up,
yourself off,
I'm gonna
keep
do it
going. You
again."
know, and I'm still working on my
Yeah.
master's degree at the
Yeah, at
time.
the
You know,
time you
and
were
so
working on your master's degree.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I hadn't quit on anything. It sucked, but what was I going to do?
And
As
you're
I said
creating these
before,
courses in prison that
yeah,
are helping all these
I'm
guys.
building programs. Yeah, I built a reentry program. I built a
Yeah.
program off of a friend's
Power
book
of
called The Power of
consistency.
Consistency. Yeah, we did all this stuff. I had a team of guys. You know, a few friends. We put this together, and we were rocking and rolling. You know, we had our mission, we had our purpose, we had our
So
meaning,
that
and then
also had to help you a lot with, obviously, time in prison, people do their time differently. But when you started putting these programs together, you started creating this curriculum, and these people started being part of these classes, and you were teaching these classes, and that had to fill you up, David, to make you know that in your past, you were making a difference by being the guy that everybody relied on, and you were the
yeah.
general of the world. This was different. This was making an impact by bettering these men to go out into the world.
Yeah, even in the face of my own denials,
Right,
of my own losses,
right.
you know, I was able to show the men that despite no matter what happens to you, we still have an ability to choose, right?
Yes.
No matter how bad things get, we can still rise up amongst this stuff. And so I didn't quit. I didn't quit. And then we get a new governor, Governor Jared Polis, and he comes into office and he uh, rewrites the clemency rules because you know that's the power of the governor.
Mhm.
So he has his own rules. He adopted a lot of Hickenlooper's rules, but he changed some of them. And one of the ones that he had changed was the line item that made me ineligible. Now all of a sudden I'm eligible. And so I didn't have to write a waiver letter. I did anyways just to cover
Just
all
to make
bases.
sure.
Yeah, I didn't even have to ask for a waiver this time. So I put in my petition for clemency and you know, I finish up my master's degree. I get the job as the first you know, incarcerated
Mhm.
college professor in the nation. I'm doing amazing things and uh, I hire this attorney, Heidi Tripp, amazing lady, and she starts to help me with my clemency petition. She hires a social worker who does an amazing job. And then she even reached out to my old DA who, you know, led the charge to convict me and got a support letter from this guy.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
And so yeah, the wardens are signing off on me. I had two wardens who were supporting me with my clemency. Yeah, just phenomenal support. And so, uh, 3 years go by, right? 3 years go by. I finished my MBA. COVID's over with. You know, the lockdowns are coming on, and it's December 21st of 2023. I had already taught 2 semesters of college classes for Adams State, and I was about to start a third semester. And I get this slip on December 21st from my case manager, and it says, "You have an appointment in my office tomorrow for a clemency interview." I
Mhm.
had never, in 30 plus years, I'd never heard
Never
anybody
had.
get a clemency interview. So I'm like, clemency interview, what the heck is this, right? I had
Yeah.
no frame of reference or of anything, right, to be ready to prepare myself. And so that night, I'm up all night. I can't sleep. I'm like, what the hell? What are they going to ask me, right? What are
Yeah.
they going
Hope
to
I don't say
say?
anything wrong.
Am I gonna, right? Am I going to sound sincere? Am I going to answer a
Mhm.
question wrong? That's going to, you know, shoot myself in the foot because history has already showed me that, you know, there's always something that's going to put the
Right.
kibosh on my ability to be able to come home. So I'm sitting there and I'm tripping, and then I get to the case manager's office the next morning, December 22nd of 2023, and you know, I'm talking to my case manager, and I shared with her that I had a hard time sleeping, and she ends up
She
telling me she
agrees.
had a hard time.
She
Yeah,
did too.
she was panicked herself because you know she was one of my biggest supporters as well, and
Yeah.
she's like, man, I was worried too. I couldn't sleep either, and you know, she was worried they were going to ask her something. And, so then, you know, as we're sitting there kind of laughing about that, you know, that connection, the Zoom meeting starts, and 3 ladies from the governor's office, right, his legal team, they all pop on, and I'm waiting for the first question, and the main spokeslady speaks up. She says, "Hi, Mr. Carrillo. we just wanted to call and let you know that the governor has granted your petition for clemency.
Mm.
You'll be released on January 31st of 2024."
Man.
And oh man, like when I got that MBA and they offered me that job, there goes my head.
Mm.
Just the ocean waves of emotions are just going, and I'm not even ashamed to say it, tears started
Mm.
to run down my eyes, and then the lady asked me, "Do you have any questions for us?" I was like, "Question?
I can't think.
I could, yeah, I could barely keep my body from collapsing to the
Yeah.
floor, and you want me to formulate a
Yeah.
question?"
It's
And
been over 30
I
years.
remember I finally did get enough senses to ask if I needed to put together a parole plan, and they said, "Yeah." And so, yeah, then the call ended, and yeah, the case manager's crying. Another case manager walks by and hears the news, and she starts crying. And yeah, it was amazing, And I'm sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, almost 31
Almost
straight years
31
since I got
years.
locked up. Right? I got locked up on July 7th of 1993,
Mm.
and I'm going to be going home on July 1st, or I'm sorry, January 31st of 2024,
Mm.
just over a month away. Almost 31 years and just over a month away, I'm going home. Oh,
It's
man,
just,
it was wild. It was emotional. It finally that
well,
miracle finally happened for me.
I remember in the book, there were the whole COVID thing and the old warden was leaving, and so you didn't think you were gonna be able to, because he knew, the old
Yeah,
David and the new David and all that,
yeah.
and so you thought, "Well, hell, that's not gonna work work because he's leaving, he's retiring, and this COVID thing, nobody's getting out," and
Yeah, and 'cause, again, with Hickenlooper, the messed up thing about Hickenlooper is when I submitted my, clemency packet on that one, a new warden had came in. The old warden had left, a new warden came in, and this warden didn't even interview me. He just checked
just
the
checked it.
no
Yeah,
box. Yeah, he checked the box that said no, he doesn't support
yeah,
me. And so, but this time though, with this one, as he was retiring me, he let me know he was retiring, and I asked him. I said, "Man, are you still going to give me that interview?" And he said, "I promise you, I give you my word."
and you did.
And this is during the lockdowns. He goes, "I give you my word. Before I leave, I'll give you the interview." And sure enough, he called me out and he gave me the interview, and it was cool, And by this time, man, he didn't even ask me about like the facts of the crime, because I hadn't been denying it, right?
Mhm.
I'd owned it,
Right.
and so when he's giving me this interview, actually, all he's really doing is giving me advice. He's
Mhm.
like, "Look, when you get out, you got to be mindful of this. You got to be mindful
Right.
of this, right?" And he's like trying to help set me up for success, and it was a really cool interview.
Yeah, I thought
And
that
then
was a really great part of the book, and not knowing how it was, I obviously knew that you got out, but I didn't know what happened then, and then I was thinking, "Oh, man, for David, he's not gonna get that warden's not gonna be there. He's this COVID thing is gonna make it where he can't get out and go talk to him and then interview," and then the interview happens, and he gave his word, and he went through with it, and man, okay, so you've got 30 days before you bolt this place after
yeah.
31 years. Uh, what's it like in those 30 days?
Oh man, it's prepping time. It's the little by little and giving stuff away, right?
Yeah.
You know how it
Oh,
goes,
yeah.
right? The canteen starts
Yeah.
getting shifted out. Property. Hey, bro, what are you gonna do with that beanie?
Exactly. You gonna use
I,
that
I,
radio?
I had a real nice old school beanie, and everybody had been coveting that beanie for a while,
Yeah.
and so yeah, so it started divvying things up to my friends. And Sean scored big. I don't know if he mentioned that when I left. He ended up with a big old box of food because I'm penitentiary rich at this time. I mean, I'm bringing in adjunct professor pay, so my box is
Exactly.
packed with food.
You're
Yeah,
prison
yeah,
rich.
yeah. I'm prison rich, so yeah, I left
Mm.
Sean a big old. He talked about how much weight he had put on after I left because all the food I had left him. Uh, yeah, no. So that's what it was. It was getting my mindset ready for what it was going to be like when I went home. So for all the lessons I had took listening to the fellas who were doing
Yeah.
life on the installment plan, right? They'd get out, come back, get out and
Yeah.
come back.
Yeah.
Now, what happened? Tell me about what happened with you. I listened to that. I
Yeah.
studied that. So I began to prepare myself. I would visualize and imagine walking into the chow hall as if I was walking into a restaurant.
Mhm.
Because to me it was the same thing,
Mhm.
and that helped me. I didn't have those anxieties I used to hear a lot of the fellas talk about getting out
Yeah.
and going to a restaurant for the first time and just feeling overwhelmed with everything.
Yeah.
I didn't panic going into the stores or being around social situations because I started to set my mindset
Right.
up
Start to visualize
for
it.
these started to visualize these things, and man, when that door opened up,
Let's
when I
talk
tell
about
you,
it. Let's talk about the door opening up because I think your sister and some other people were right on the other side.
Oh, yeah, they were waiting
You had
for
some
me,
cool
yeah.
shoes on, some jeans, and a polo blue
We
shirt.
yeah, with the DOC dress out and, the DOC dress out, yeah, there's my sister and my friends waiting for me, all the fellas that had supported me after they had gotten out, and it was awesome, man, just holding them and holding my sister and, yeah, just being free, and my friend, one when my friend Jericho Rule Hunt, he had, the only thing I had asked for, right? Because I didn't really know what I wanted or what I wanted to do because it was just so fast and so crazy. Never really thought I'm not a stylish guy, so I didn't visualize what I'd wear when I
Mhm.
got out. I didn't think about none of that stuff. But the only thing that I had asked for was I wanted the most comfortable pair of shoes in the world, right? Because the shoes that we wore on the inside
Oh,
were
man.
crap,
So,
right?
whoever makes
Horrible.
those black boots, David, should
Yeah,
be
those black
shot.
boots are
I mean,
horrible. Even in Colorado, we were able to buy tennis shoes on
yeah.
Canteen, but they were selling such cheap pieces of crap shoes that it was
Yeah.
horrible. So my one ask was for the most comfortable pair of shoes in the world. And so my boy Rule Hunt, he comes up with and he gives me a box of On Clouds.
Nice.
And said, yeah, these were supposed to be $250 shoes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, put those suckers on right away. And
Love
yeah,
the on cloud.
I was like, yeah, there we go.
Okay, so you had this great thing on the other side, and but I don't remember if it's right after you guys leave there, you go to a restaurant and
Yeah,
you're having
right
this
after.
great moment, and then
Great
these
moment. Yeah.
CEOs walk
We,
in, and there's about
yeah,
as many of
that was,
them as there are you,
yeah,
and you get this, like, weird
feel it.
feeling.
Yeah, I get this weird vibe. We go into this, right? Like I said, I was prepared for that. I mentally prepared myself for social situations, right? So we go to this nice restaurant. We all after everybody, we hug and embrace and once the tears dried up, we all got into the cars and we drove to this diner and we go into this diner and order my first breakfast and we're eating, all having a good time talking and all of us after I'm done eating, in walks this crew of COs. Now, when I describe it, because I really don't know, we didn't talk with them. They looked like they had either just got done like if they were the sort team to the goon squad, they just got done, smashing some people
Mhm.
out, or they looked like they were about to go and do that,
Mhm.
right? Because they just had that
Look.
that look on them and that energy. And as soon as I seen them, my whole demeanor shifted,
Mhm.
right? And I sit up, I kind of even put my leg out because if they get ready to move, I'm in ready to move,
Mhm.
and instinct, right?
Yeah.
Instinct, right? Of what we did when we were inside, and so my sister looks at me and she sees me and she sees my whole face is shifted and my demeanor has changed and she's wondering what's going on and she looks over and she sees them and she kind of tenses up a little, understands, and we all just get up and we walk out the door, which is we're not even going to buy into it. So that honestly was my only real
Yeah.
uh
The
like
reason I brought it up is it just shows you, even if you prepare all the things you prepare, something like that out of something you
you
wouldn't have
yeah
thought of,
you
it
and
hits you
yeah,
and it creates that feel,
that feel,
whatever
yeah, and
that is.
if you don't know how to handle it, it could lead to, some bad decisions,
Yeah.
some poor decisions,
Yeah.
and that is something, and I'll be writing more about that later, because I do wanna touch on that topic is, I've been discovering that there were a lot of things that I didn't prepare for, but I prepared for a lot of things and I hit the ground
You
running. I
did.
mean,
Let's talk about that.
considering
Let's talk
yeah, considering where I'm at, I'm highly successful now, but, I have ran into a few things I didn't prepare for, but because I prepared through Covey,
right.
that self awareness, right? I'm hyper self aware. I think things. I'm good with that. Doesn't mean I don't feel things, but I know how to deal with those emotions better than I did when I was younger. But yeah, no, the success. When I hit the ground running, I came home. I had a job working with my friend Rule Hunt at Transcendence Recovery as a substance use disorder peer specialist and director of operations. I was still teaching for Adams State
Right.
University, so I got hooked up with Red Rocks Community College. I began to work as an adjunct professor for Red Rocks Community College. So basically I had 3 jobs walking out the door.
Which is unreal, and I'm so impressed with that because that is not easy.
Yeah, no, it definitely isn't easy. Yeah, so yeah, January 31st, 2024, I got 3 jobs coming home, you know, I got money in my pocket.
Yeah,
I got like, $12,000 of my own money from,
right.
what I had made working as an adjunct instructor on the inside. So I'm ready. I'm hitting it, and, it's a few short months later, I become a fellow with, JFF Horizons, Jobs for the Future Horizons. They fly me out to Washington, DC, my first trip. I'm going to DC. I mean, I grew up in the system,
Yeah,
for crying out loud. California and Colorado. That's it.
yeah,
That's it. Pueblo and LA, right? And now all of a sudden I'm in DC, and then I get invited to NCHEP in New Orleans. I'm in New Orleans. I get put on to this other fellowship, the Rockwood Leadership for Higher Education in Prison, and I'm going to these training seminars, and they're cool because it's this leadership training, almost like the Covey stuff.
exactly.
I used to watch videos of Covey, at these resorts,
Yeah,
at these nice resorts with
here's
all these
David.
management people. And now here I am. I'm at this nice resort in Racine, Wisconsin,
Yeah,
right? And it's looking out on the Great Lake, Lake Michigan, and I've never seen Lake Michigan before. And here I am in Racine, and then we have this nice little resort in San Diego, on one of the little islands out in their harbor,
yeah.
right, in their area. And so I'm enjoying San Diego, and then New York. We're in Briarcliff Manor, New York, and this is a beautiful resort up in New York. And I'm just in awe of all of this stuff, and I'm meeting all of these wonderful people. Especially, what was really amazing, actually meeting all these wonderful people like yourself, formerly
Yeah,
incarcerated, out here doing big things.
yeah,
And I'm like, we never get to see this,
right.
right? We never get
Don't
to
hear
see
about
these
it.
guys,
Right.
or hear about it. And now all of a sudden I'm finding out there's a huge community out here of amazing people who have done time and are out here just killing it right now,
Yeah.
right? And they're all working towards criminal justice reform in
Right.
their own
Right.
rights,
Right.
and trying to help set up for success for people coming home, housing and job opportunities, and just policy changes to try to help make the transitions home better. And just wild. I'm meeting all these people. As a matter of fact, I'm not in Colorado right now. Just a little FYI. I was in New York this week. I had won a grant from an organization called Canary
Mhm.
Impact to help write a training manual for a business idea I had. When I was coming home, I won a grant. They flew all the grant recipients that they had awarded to here to New York to convene, get some training, meet up with some funders, and just network, right?
Yeah.
And so again, here's a room full of amazing
Wow.
people from across the country, Chicago and Texas and California, and right, and we're all coming together, getting to know each other, and building networks, and just amazing things. And so yeah, the past 3 days I was in New York City, and now I'm in Virginia. I'll be going home back to Colorado here in a couple of days, but yeah, it's just
You've
been
been
it's
on the
been an
move, and
yeah.
I've really been excited about this interview because it's just got so much, like, it's it's just packed full of things that are life lessons and things that you can use, that you give people, and I don't want I want people to read this book because it really, just gives you a lot more of what we talked about here today. It's just I guess the real is so real. I get think that's why I just really couldn't put it down. It just was so real, and I felt for you when you were young, and I it made me, feel for this kid. You fight for this kid as you read about David, and then you go into prison with him, and so you've got however he's been able to write this is in a really good way. Um, I'm just really happy for you, and if I was gonna ask you, David, what do you think's your biggest takeaway through this journey for the listeners out there?
My biggest takeaway through this journey, I think one of the things that from all of it, right, when I was in my loneliest point, is that once you start to take control of your own mind, because everything's in our mind, right? Every reality that we have, that's coming into our mind, is because that's where our relevancy is at, right? Where our focus is at, where our beliefs are about. Everything is there inside of our head, and when you understand the power that you really have to shape how you see the world, right? As Covey calls it, having a paradigm shift,
Mhm.
right? Your paradigms, your patterns of expectations. When you really really truly understand the power that we have, man, you can create a whole new narrative, right? You can create a whole new story. And when they said this a lot in prison, and a lot of the prison, those old cognitive renewal things, but man, it's so rings so true, right? Is when you start to change the way you think,
Yeah,
right? You start to change the way you feel. And when you start to change the way you feel, you start to change the things you do.
yeah.
And when you change the things you do, you start to get different things,
Mhm,
right? And I'm proof positive of that concept. Man, I changed the way I thought, which changed the way I felt,
mhm.
which changed what I was doing. And it literally opened up
Changed your
the doors,
life.
changed my
Yeah.
life. And so, yeah, that's the main thing is
Well,
that, the power of the mind
that's a
it,
powerful
it's,
takeaway, David, because you are that. And man, just your belief and taking action, and not losing hope, man. You kept that alive to get yourself out of there, which, I think a lot of people would have just thrown in the towel, and you didn't. Which makes it really why you're such a good teacher because, everybody knows you've walked that walk, and when you're teaching those things, people wanna listen to that because they know it's real. Folks, for that book out there, don't forget it's Kiko, Life Without Parole to Life with Purpose. Hey, and while you're checking out things on Amazon, get my book too. It's Nightmare Success, Loyal to Betrayal,
yeah.
Life Behind Bars, Adapting and Finally Breaking Free. Hey, if you got time, leave me a review on Apple. Those things are great. I love to read them and it helps the show. If you want to know what I'm doing, go to brentcassidy.com. I spell it wrong. I spell it with a TY, not a DY. As I used to say to my people when I was writing my emails back and forth from Leavenworth, stay strong. I'll do the same. David Carrillo, man, I just am just blown away by your story and so glad that Sean Miller connected us and so glad you guys found each other. So it's just keep doing everything you're doing because it's inspiring stuff and people love comeback stories.
Thank you, and man, to all the men and women on the inside that get to hear this, man, keep pushing forward. All right, keep pushing forward.
Great stuff. David. Nightmare Success in and out.